She called the cops on a black man doing yard work. What happened next shocked the entire neighborhood and the internet. A black man was just doing his job. But one call to the police almost cost him everything. Until karma stepped in. The late morning sun sat high over Birmingham, Alabama, casting sharp shadows across the well-manicured lawns of Mayfair Park, a quiet, upper-middle-class neighborhood, where the biggest disruptions were usually barking dogs or delivery trucks. Isaac Dunbar wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand and leaned on his rake for a second, taking in his progress. The yard belonged to Walter Grayson, an 81-year-old retired Marine who had lived in the same house for nearly 4 decades. The man took pride in his property, but after a knee surgery 2 months ago, he couldn't tend to it himself. That's where Isaac came in. For the past few years, he had built up a solid reputation in landscaping. Hard work, fair prices, and no nonsense. His clients knew him by name, trusted him with their homes, and often referred him to their friends. Walter was one of his regulars. Today's job was straightforward: trim the hedges, clear out dead leaves, refresh the flower beds. A good 4-hour job, maybe 5 if the humidity dragged him down. He liked working in neighborhoods like this, quiet, clean, predictable. But as he moved to bag up a pile of leaves, something in his peripheral vision pulled his attention. Across the street, a woman stood on her porch, arms folded tight across her chest. Isaac had seen her before, not up close, never spoken to her. But he knew she lived in the 2-story colonial with the blue shutters. She was the type to keep her lawn perfectly edged, her garbage bin spotless, her porch decorations rotating with the seasons like clockwork. She hadn't been watching him at first. Her head had been buried in her phone. But now she wasn't just looking. She was staring. Isaac turned back to his work. He'd been in situations like this before. People watching him, side-eyeing him as if he didn't belong. It used to bother him when he first started his business. Now he just pushed through it. Still, something about the way she didn't move made his muscles tighten. The rake scraped against the ground as he pulled together another pile of leaves, trying to shake off the feeling of being under surveillance. He was on the clock. He had work to do. But when he glanced up again, she was still there. This time she was pacing, phone in hand. That was the moment he knew this was about to go south. Isaac exhaled through his nose, forcing himself to stay calm. Don't assume, man. Maybe she's checking emails. Maybe she's waiting for a delivery. But then he saw the way her thumb hovered over the screen. How she lifted her phone slightly, as if taking a picture. He'd seen this before. Isaac shook his head, muttering under his breath as he walked toward his truck. He grabbed his water bottle from the front seat and took a long sip, debating whether to acknowledge her or keep working. Most times, ignoring people like her was the best move. Engaging never ended well. But before he could decide, she turned sharply on her heel and walked inside. Isaac felt a flicker of relief. Maybe she had just been being nosy. Maybe it was nothing. But less than 2 minutes later, she reappeared on the porch. This time she was on the phone, speaking fast, her expression sharp. His stomach sank. Isaac checked his watch. He'd been here less than an hour. Walter was inside, probably watching TV or dozing in his recliner. Everything about this job was normal except her. He glanced at the quiet street, wondering if anyone else had noticed what was happening. The few cars parked along the curb were still, their owners probably at work.
No witnesses.
Just him, her, and whatever she thought she saw. Then, in the distance, the sound of sirens. Isaac's grip on the water bottle tightened. This was about to turn into something. He just didn't know what yet. but he had a feeling it wasn't going to be good. Isaac's pulse ticked up as the distant wail of sirens grew louder. He set his water bottle down on the truck bed, exhaling slowly. Stay calm. You didn't do anything wrong. But that didn't always matter. He glanced back toward the house. Walter hadn't come outside, probably still napping. Maybe that was for the best. Across the street, Linda Carpenter. He finally put a name to the face. Stood stiffly on her porch, still clutching her phone. She wasn't looking at him anymore. Instead, she had turned toward the road, anticipation tightening her features. Isaac had seen enough to recognize what was coming. He knew how this played out. First the call, then the assumptions, then the questions. But today, it stung a little more than usual. He was tired of this game, tired of people like her. And then blue and red lights flashed against the houses. A Birmingham Police Department cruiser pulled up fast, tires crunching against the pavement. A second squad car followed. 2 officers stepped out, one white, one black. Both were already scanning the scene before they even shut their doors. Linda walked down her porch steps like she was about to receive a delivery she'd been waiting for. Isaac could hear the officer closest to her speaking, but the words were muffled over the hum of the idling engines. She gestured sharply in his direction. There it was. Isaac forced himself to breathe evenly as the officers turned toward him. Hands visible. Stay relaxed. Keep your voice steady. One of them, the white officer, badge-reading Graham, spoke first as they approached. You mind telling me what you're doing here? His tone wasn't aggressive, but there was weight behind it. A test. Isaac motioned toward the rake leaning against the tree. Landscaping job. Hired by the homeowner. Graham's partner, Officer Reed, glanced toward the house. He looked younger, maybe late 20s. He wasn't sizing Isaac up the same way Graham was, but his posture was still alert. Linda cut in, voice firm. He doesn't belong here. Isaac clenched his jaw. There it was. The words they always used. Graham nodded slightly, then turned back to Isaac. Do you have ID? He expected that. It always came next. Isaac reached for his back pocket, slowly, moving deliberately. It's in my truck. Mind if I grab it? Both officers stiffened slightly at the movement. Isaac suppressed a sigh. Go ahead, Graham said. Eyes locked on him. Isaac moved to his truck, pulled out his wallet, and handed over his driver's license. Graham studied it for a second, then turned to Linda. Ma'am, what exactly did you see? Linda's lips pressed together like she was carefully choosing her words. He was looking around too much, she finally said. Acting suspicious. Isaac let out a short, humorless laugh before he could stop himself. Suspicious how? Because I'm picking up leaves? Linda stiffened. There have been break-ins in this area before. Isaac shook his head. He knew this neighborhood. There hadn't been a single reported break-in in over a year. Before Graham could say anything else, the front door of Walter's house swung open. Walter stepped out, moving slowly but with purpose, his cane tapping against the porch as he took in the scene. Isaac saw the moment recognition flickered in Walter's eyes, shifting to disbelief. What the hell is going on out here? His voice was rough with age but carried the unmistakable weight of someone used to being listened to. Graham turned. Sir, do you know this man? Walter scowled. Of course I do. I hired him. What's the problem? Silence. Reed cleared his throat. We got a call about a suspicious person. Walter's gaze snapped to Linda, then back to the officers. You're telling me she called the police on my landscaper? The tension in the air shifted. Linda took a step back, suddenly looking unsure of herself. "I was just looking out for the neighborhood," she muttered. "I didn't know he was supposed to be here." Walter let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Lady, he's been working on my yard for 3 years. Isaac crossed his arms. "You could have just asked." Linda's face flushed, but she didn't respond. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Officer Graham handed Isaac his license back. "You're free to go." Linda's mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to object, but no words came out. Isaac tucked his ID into his pocket. "I was free the whole time." Walter let out a grunt, shaking his head. "This is ridiculous." But Linda still wasn't letting it go. "This is a safety issue," she insisted. "He looks like someone I saw on the neighborhood watch page." Isaac laughed again, but this time it wasn't forced. "I look like someone." He let that hang in the air, letting the weight of the accusation settle. Graham exhaled sharply. He looked tired. "Ma'am," he said finally, "do you have any reason to believe this man committed a crime?" Linda hesitated.
No.
Walter interrupted. "She doesn't." Graham let out a slow breath, then turned back to Isaac. "Sorry for the trouble." Isaac just shook his head. Sorry didn't mean much when this kept happening. But before anyone could move, a voice from across the street called out, "I got the whole thing on camera." Everyone turned. A woman stood on the sidewalk, phone raised, recording. Linda's face drained of color, and just like that, the situation had shifted again. Linda's lips parted slightly, like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. The weight of the camera, the eyes on her, the realization that she wasn't controlling the situation anymore. It was hitting her all at once. But Isaac knew better than to think she'd back down. People like her, they never just walked away. "You can't just put me online," Linda snapped, voice rising. "That's harassment." The woman with the phone didn't even flinch. "Funny. That's what I'd call what you just did to him." She tilted her head toward Isaac. Linda's fingers tightened around her phone. "You don't understand. I was just being cautious. This is a high-value neighborhood." Walter let out a sharp laugh. "Lady, we ain't in Beverly Hills." Isaac almost smiled. Almost. But Linda wasn't giving up. She turned to Graham, eyes pleading. "Now you need to do something about this. That video could ruin my reputation." Graham exhaled slowly. Isaac could tell he was debating how much longer he wanted to be part of this mess. "Ma'am, unless you want to press charges for something, there's nothing I can do." Linda's nostrils flared. "Press charges? Against who? For what?" Walter smirked. "For getting caught." Isaac stayed quiet. This wasn't his fight anymore. She had made it clear who she was. And now she was dealing with the fallout. But Linda still didn't see it that way. She turned her attention back to Isaac, jabbing a finger in his direction. "You could have just said something when I was watching. You could have told me you were working here." Isaac finally spoke, voice calm. "I don't have to explain myself to you." Linda's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she didn't have a response. She looked toward the officers again, grasping at anything. "This isn't fair. I'm not a bad person." Isaac let out a breath. There it was. The whole thing had flipped, and now she was the victim. Walter rubbed his forehead, muttering something under his breath before looking back at her. "You made a bad call. That's it. You could have just walked over and asked me. Or knocked on my door. Or, here's an idea. Minded your own damn business." Linda's face flushed. She shook her head quickly, like she was trying to shake off the moment itself. I need to speak with your supervisor. Shh. Looking at the officers. This isn't right. I need to file a report against